Hi guys, Steve here, stevesuggests.com. Welcome to 2021. This is my first video for the year, so if you've been expecting there to be more, you've not missed anything from this year. Welcome to go back and look at videos from last year, of course. So cockfighting came to my attention just reading the usual Thai news, seeing the COVID announcement of what was going to be closed and all that sort of thing, and I could see cockfighting pits or arenas have been ordered to close. And the reason I thought it was curious or odd was that I thought that cockfighting was illegal. Whether it was just a perception I had or whether somebody actually told me this, I can't remember, but that was the feeling that I had. So I sort of thought, well, you know, if it's illegal, why are people engaged in an illegal activity being told to stop it? Because they shouldn't have been doing it anyway. But it turns out they were also closed in the first outbreak, or whatever you want to call it, back in April or so on. And, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, we've all probably seen these prize cocks or roosters in various parts of Thailand, but just because they're there doesn't mean that they're there because they're part of a legal activity. When I moved to Khon Kaen, there was a guy over the fence from the apartment I was living in who appeared to be training cocks for fighting. He had a smallish one and a sort of a harness hanging from a beam sort of thing, and had a larger one that he was doing this with, a larger cock, and well, sort of probably better if I showed it that way. And I'm guessing that the reason for him behaving like that was he was trying to make the little one fight back as much as it could in this suspended harness. Now, generally speaking, gambling is illegal in Thailand, but we know it happens, so you know, I sort of presumed it was the same with cockfighting, and that was why this fellow was presumably training his cocks. So I didn't really, you know, think anything of it other than having moved into somewhere where there were roosters next door was a bit of a mistake. When I went and looked at the place, there were no roosters carrying on, so never mind. I didn't stay there for too long, but that's just a bit of a sidetrack. But as it turns out, cockfighting in Thailand is actually legal, but fights to the death, or you know, last cock standing, are not. There was a law passed in 2014 said that those fights cannot be proceeding anymore. So the fights are gambled on, which is often illegal. So maybe you see where I was getting confused as to what was legal, what was not, and why cockfighting venues are places that need to be shut down, just as the bars and other entertainment establishments were as well. So historically, going back, this is an activity that's been popular in Thailand. It's actually popular throughout many Asian countries and some South American countries as well. Its origins are first recorded as there were images present on Phoenician pottery, which is over 3,000 years old. The ancient Greeks, Persians and Egyptians all loved the sport. Many English kings were supporters of what they called the noble sport, and Henry VIII even had his own cockfighting pit at Whitehall Palace, or Royal Cockpit. It was considered to be England's national sport for almost 150 years, and schools were set up to teach the finer points of cockfighting, which included breeding, exercise, training and conditioning. But today all of that's virtually disappeared, and so, you know, thank goodness for football, I suppose. That's no doubt what's replaced it, or had something to do with replacing it. In Thailand, the roots of cockfighting were linked with the honouring of ancestral spirits. Some in Thailand consider cockfighting to be the national sport. Fights today, all roosters are supposed to have their spurs taped up. Notice I say supposed to. I don't know. I've never been to a cockfight. I'm probably not likely to. These fights are now won on points being given for technique, which include persistence and bravery of the cock. It's a part of traditional Thai culture, with the origin of that culture having been tied to the very ancient ceremony of Phon Pi. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologise if I'm not, but I've got it written down as Phon Pi, a northeastern tradition which honours ancestral spirits and includes cockfighting in a religious and symbolic context. So that goes back to the Isan area when they're talking about northeast. There's also a Thai legend that describes how in 1562 the young prince Naresuan, apologies again if the pronunciation's wrong, was taken captive by the Burmese. He went to Burma, now Myanmar. When he went there, he took his pet cockerel with him. The prince was well treated, and because of preferential treatment or whatever you want to call it, was able to put his own cockerel against Burmese ones. And it's said that the prince secured his release by making a bet that his rooster could beat the Burmese king's champion, which in fact it did. The story spread, and the sport was quickly taken up by the Thai royal court and nobility. But today it's the rural population, like Isan, for instance, that I mentioned before, and the urban working classes that keep it very much alive today. It's been likened to Muay Thai, the Thai boxing, in the way that the fighters are selected, their training, conditioning. Champion birds attract a cult following, just like the kickboxers do. When I was in Udon Thani, I remember seeing glossy magazines dedicated entirely to the sport. At least that's what I presumed from looking at the cover and thumbing through one to see if I could work out what it was about. All Thai script, of course, so I couldn't read it then, and I couldn't read it today. But I think that's a fair guess that that's what it was about. There's a lot of very influential people behind cockfighting in Thailand. They benefit from the industry that's risen up around it, from areas such as the production of the feed supplements and hormones used to plump the birds up, and to the special wicker baskets that they're reared in. You see these like dome-shaped baskets here and there with a cockerel inside it. So in this industry, good fighting birds can sell for more than 3 million baht, and Thailand's exported to neighbouring countries such as Malaysia, and Indonesia, with buyers arriving from as far away as France and Bahrain. So even though gambling is illegal, registered cockfighting venues are exempt. So those ones, it's legal to gamble. So there has to be a registered cockfighting venue. Okay, so then that's where we've got some grey with the gambling being, is it illegal or is it legal? So in these registered cockfighting venues, it is legal, or it's been exempted from being illegal, but the birds have to be registered and issued with an ID card. Whether there's legal gambling or not, it's part of the game everywhere, and money will always change hands at the end of every bout. The highest known reward, if you want to call it that, in cockfighting history in Thailand is for more than $1 million US, and that was from a stadium on the outskirts of Bangkok in February 2018. Doing my research for this vlog, I found a link dated April 2020 for betting online on cockfights, and also found links for fighting cocks for sale. On top of that, there's the usual Facebook pages, which means that I guess someone will live stream it and all that sort of thing. So if you're that way inclined, you can buy your bird, gamble on it, and watch it all from the comfort of your lounge or wherever it is you do your interneting. Not promoting it, and I'm not saying it's wrong either. I'm trying to just provide some information and sit on the fence on the issue. I originally went to Thailand in 2011. Originally went there in 2011 with the intention of living there for the rest of my life. I didn't. I managed 2.5 years, and through via China, I ended coming back to New Zealand. But when I was there in 2011, my girlfriend of the time introduced me to her cousin, who was very proud of his fighting cock. So I saw that he had his fingernails and his toenails, he had nail polish on them. Back then, in 2011, I only really knew of goth guys that would be wearing nail polish, and no idea whether that stretched to them painting their toes as well. So I asked her if he was gay. To me, that seemed like a perfectly reasonable question to ask. Didn't care whether he was gay, didn't care whether he wasn't. It was just a question because I was curious. And she looked at me, you know, really surprised, like I had two heads or something like that, as if I should have known better for asking the question. And she just said that his nails had been painted the same colour as his cock, to give his cock more power. So that's it, guys. That's a little bit about cockfighting, all because I saw the notice, or saw the cockfighting arenas were going to be closed along with bars and everything else due to the resurgence of COVID. Otherwise, I would not have been talking about cockfighting at all. It never entered my mind. But anyway, I'll wrap it up there. Just to finish off though, so if you see a Thai guy with painted nails, be very careful, as he just might have a very powerful cock. Bye guys, catch you all later.